Hi guys, and welcome to another wrap-up video. This one is for a bingo board that Amy from AStar Reads put out. This was fun. I did not, as you can see, I did draw the bingo and I did not get a bingo. So that's the bingo board, but there's no bingo. I didn't win. But I read, so that is a win. I will tell you what prompts were for the bingo board. If I fulfilled it, I'll let you know what book I used to fulfill that prompt. If I did not, I'll just move on. So there's a total of 25 prompts, and the goal is just to get a bingo, which I did not. Prompt number 1 is scary doll. So to read a book that has a scary doll in it, or something like that. I did not complete that prompt. Moving on, prompt number 2 was cryptids. So this is to read a book that has cryptids. For this one, it's actually in the title. I read Cryptid Club. So you can see it's in the title. So this definitely qualifies. Plus there were actual cryptids in this, along with other aliens, some octopuses or the kraken, ghost dogs, ghosts, the Loch Ness Monster, various creatures, but this definitely qualified for the Cryptid Club. I gave this one 5 stars. This is by Sarah Andersen. Absolutely love this, and I look forward to see what else Sarah Andersen comes out. She is definitely fast becoming one of my favorite graphic novel creators. So, love this. Okay. The next one is Scariest Book on TBR. This one I read on my Kindle, so I'll insert the image here. I read Dark Lines by Jack Harding. I gave this one 3 stars. This was a collection of short horror stories. It was okay. There were some I liked better. There was a horror story regarding spiders. There was one that involved a little girl and there being a fairground. There was one about sleep paralysis. There were a whole bunch. Some of them I just kind of rolled my eyes at. Some of them I thought were pretty good, like the one with the spiders. So it just kind of averaged out to a 3-star read for me. So, but if you would like to read short horror stories, I do recommend this one because it is definitely a way to kind of see what you would like regarding the horror genre with short stories. You can try a couple of them out, see if you do like that. Now this one is all by Jack Harding, so this is not by various artists or anything like this. Like that. So it's all just by one artist. Let's go ahead and move on because there's really not much to say about a bunch of short stories without spoiling a lot of stuff, and honestly I can't really remember much of it. It was pretty average for me. Not my type of thing. Prompt number 4 was to read a classic horror. I did not. I wanted to read something like Frankenstein, but I didn't have time, so I missed that one. Number 5 was murder, so read a book with murder. For this one I went with Halloween Party by R.L. Stine. This is a young adult. This is part of the Fear Street series. Each book can be read as a standalone within the Fear Street world, but it is still a series, but each one is like a standalone, but it just takes place all within the same world. This one we're following, the main female is Terry, I believe. And there is a murder in this, and I can't tell you anything about the murder without spoiling it. I will say that the Halloween party, this new girl shows up. She wants to throw a Halloween party with a select group of people to supposedly get to know them better. Tricks are played. You're finding out which tricks are not tricks and which are tricks. There is a warning for alcoholism with 2 teenagers in this story. They are not main characters, but they're still massively, get like drop down drunk bad in this. So just be aware of that, as that is a sore spot. And then a murder does happen in this, but it is closer towards the end of the book. So I can't say anything about the murder, but there is a murder in this. So Halloween Party by R.L. Stine. I gave this 5 stars. I thought that if I were reading this the first time, I probably would have given it a 3-star. If I were reading it now, for the first time, I think I would actually gear more towards the 4-star. Just has that extra star because it's a lot of nostalgia. I loved the Fear Street books growing up, and R.L. Stine's Fear Street books are actually what really got me into reading. So a lot of nostalgia attached to the Fear Streets. So I read that one. The next prompt, or prompt number 6, was circus or clown. So read a book with a circus or a clown. I did not do that. Prompt number 7 is Halloween themed. So just to read a book that is Halloween themed. For this one, I actually found this book at Barnes & Noble and I was so excited. And this is one of the cases where the book came after the movie, and the movie is definitely better than the book. This was in the children's section, but that is The Nightmare Before Christmas by Disney, Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a children's version of the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas, so obviously in my particular opinion, and I think a lot of people would think this way when reading this, the movie is definitely better than the book, but this is one of those rare cases where the book came after the movie. So I enjoyed reading it. It has some fun pictures. I mean, the words and the font is big. The spacing, you know, it's got some great spacing, but that's what you get from a children's book. So this was enjoyable. Ultimately, as far as, like, if I had not have seen the movie and just read this book, it would have been like a 3-star. But knowing, I mean, I gave it a 3-star, but knowing that this definitely came after the movie, I will enjoy this more in the future if I have kids to read this to or read this with. But obviously I like the movie much better. So we'll just go ahead and move on from that. Prompt number 8 is witches. So to read a book with witches in it. For this one I read Creepy Cat Volume 4. This is the last one in the Creepy Cat series. So there's only 4. This one does have witches. As you can see on the cover, you also have a Ouija board. Doesn't really get used much in this book, but witches is kind of a heavier theme in this one. So this did contain witches. This is a young adult paranormal gothic manga. Highly recommend, especially if you want to dip your toes into manga. This would be a great place to start. Even more so if you like cats, because cats are huge in this. So 5 stars. I love this series. Just beautiful artwork. So just Cotton Valent is the creator of this, the artist and author. Cotton did a fabulous job with this. I love this series. Prompt number 9 is Stephen King. So to read a book maybe inspired by Stephen King or that's actually written by Stephen King. If you want more description of these prompts, you'll definitely want to check out Amy's channel. She did this and went into more depth in this. I do have a Stephen King. I was thinking, oh, I could read Carrie because I do have that on my Kindle. I'm thinking Stephen King is not the author for me. I didn't pick up Carrie, so I did not complete this prompt. So let's go ahead and move on. So prompt number 10 was to read a book with a scary cover. I did not do that. Prompt number 11, read a spooky book with voice of reason characters. So one of the characters has a voice of reason. I did not read this one. Prompt number 12 is to read a book with zombies. I do have a book I could have read for this, but I did not get to that prompt, so that is unfulfilled. Number 13 was a free space. Like most bingo boards, you just read whatever, and there's always a free space. So for this one, I counted Deadly Waters by Hutchison. This is a new series, and I don't remember the name of this particular series, but this is the first book. The second one is not out yet. And I gave this one, what did I give this? 5 stars. Major trigger warnings for sexual assault, for rape. It is a huge topic throughout this entire book. So this takes place at a college university campus in Florida, and one day a man shows up dead, and it is death by alligator. And there's some assumptions that are being made as to if the man, and it's like there's a serial killer on the loose. This does have 2 POVs. The second POV is just a chapter every now and then. But there's this connection that starts to get made that maybe possibly the men being killed in this are men that sexually assaulted someone, raped someone, something along those lines. And so it's kind of a revenge thing. It definitely has an undertone of that makes you think if these killings were justified, because of how many times men regarding sexual assault and rape can just get like a slap on the wrist. You don't want to ruin the young man's life, but they ruined the woman's life when they raped her and sexually assaulted her. They, really damaged her life, but yet they don't want to destroy another man's life, a man's life. So it's very much a huge look into that. If any sort, it doesn't get too graphic regarding the rape and the sexual assault, but it is reminisced. It's remembered a lot, and people talk about what happened to them regarding rape and sexual assault. So if that is at all triggering to you, avoid this book, because that is a huge plot thread in this, and it is from cover to cover talked about. So you don't really get any rest from it. So there's that. And 5 stars, I loved it. And Hutchison has definitely become an auto-buy author for me. So I'm looking forward to see what else Dot puts out. Prompt number 14 is Black or Orange Cover. This one I read Berserk. This is the Deluxe edition. I don't know how many volumes of Berserk are in this, but this is Deluxe Volume 1. And honestly, you know what? I gave this one 0 stars. It just was not for me. There's a couple of things. I was bored reading this. I had to force myself to pick it up because I thought, well, this is an easy read. You do have fairies in this, or a fairy that's naked, and you can't really, I assume the fairy is, if you had to pick a gender, would probably be male. The bottom half, it doesn't show anything. The top half is like a man's chest type of a situation. So, for example, like right here. So there's the fairy. And this is very gory. I did like the gore in this. There were some strange creatures, but there wasn't a lot. And with some manga, there's just not a lot of dialogue. And this is the very limited amount of dialogue. This is the least amount of dialogue that I have read in a manga. The other thing is, so I was bored. Plain and simple, I was bored. This starts out with a sex scene in it, just right on the first page, and then it's like, it turns out to be a trap. But then later on in the book, around halfway or a little over halfway, there's like a group orgy, and it is graphic. That's the other reason I didn't like it. So I will not be continuing on with this series purely because I was bored. I didn't like the sexual stuff in this, but that was very minimal, couple of pages. So that kind of turned me off just a little bit more. But the biggest thing is I was just bored. And it was the same thing. This guy would get hurt, he'd heal, he'd fight. And it was just a continuing cycle over and over. So I was bored with it. So I will be unhauling this and letting someone else enjoy this that will actually enjoy this. But just not for me. So I'm not continuing on with this. Let's see. Let's go on to the next prompt. I have to switch the page. Prompt number 15 was Ghost Story. So this one I actually read on, where did it go? Oh, it's right here. I read on my Kindle. I read Ghost Story by Victoria Schwab. This was a middle grade about a girl, I believe her name was Cassie. She has a ghost friend named Jacob. Cassie has a near-death experience with almost drowning in a lake, like falling off of a bridge and drowning. Her family and her mom and dad have written a book about like ghost stories, something along those lines. Their book gets picked up to be filmed, almost like TV episodes, but they go to Scotland to do that. Cassie can actually see ghosts, but her parents don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. I know this is at the very least a trilogy. I have heard many people talk about City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab on YouTube. Few less people talked about the second one. I don't recall the title of the second one, and I have yet to hear anyone talk about the third book in this series. I don't know if people have just not talked about it because they haven't read it, but there are a lot of books out there to read, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but I will definitely be continuing on with this series. And this is a series, when I read the first book on my Kindle, that I recognized that this is one that I can see myself rereading a lot, and I want my own physical copy. So I have marked that on Amazon so that at some point I will get myself a physical copy, and then I'll continue on and get the rest of the trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I don't know if there's going to be any more, but there's at least 3 books out so far, and at some point I will collect everything in this series. I did like that. I really enjoyed that. Prompt number 16 is Nevermore. So something regarding Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, or ravens. I did not read anything with that. Prompt number 17 is to read a dystopian or a post-apocalyptic. I did not complete this prompt. Number 18, read a book with blood on the cover. Again, I did not get to that one. Now, I am going to skip prompt number 19, which I did. I'm saying I completed it, but there are some additional prompts that I did not complete. So I just want to tell you what those prompts are real quick. Prompt number 20 was to read a book with a haunted place. Number 21, something dealing with a graveyard. Number 22 has to do with an ancient evil. 23 is The Depths Below. 24 is body horror. And number 25 is creepy crawlers. I did not complete any of those prompts. But number 19, I am saying I did. Now, I had the physical book of this. I was so excited to read this. This would be my first time reading this particular author. I think adult books that this author writes is not going to be for me. I will check out the young adult books. And I actually DNF'd this book at page 125. And I was excited because this was vampires. But to me, I'm giving this a 0 stars because I DNF'd it. I felt like this author was trying to make a more gritty version of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, and I feel like within the first 125 pages it fell flat. Now, this particular book that I had, I was so excited about it. I pre-ordered it from Amazon, so it was a signed copy, so someone will be happy to get a signed copy of this. There were pictures, and I did, as I was bored and I just felt like it was falling flat, I did flip through the pictures in there and saw that it was going to be coming across some sexually explicit scenes. There was already one right up at the front, not the most sexually explicit that I have read, but it was still more than I wanted to read. So I thought, I'm bored, I feel like it's falling flat, I'm not looking forward to coming across any more sexually explicit scenes in the book, so I went ahead and DNF'd it. And that is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. There are other books that do sound intriguing that J. Kristoff has written. I have yet to read these, but this is definitely a case where before I even spend my hard-earned money, on another book by J. Kristoff, I will be checking out further works from this author from the library, where I do not have to worry about if I'm going to be wasting money. Definitely a lesson learned. I will be checking out books from the library. I do want to read the Illuminae files. That actually sounds really good. I think is that the one that he wrote with Amy Kaufman? I don't know. I've heard a lot about this series and it sounds really good, but I'll definitely be checking it out from the library. If I like that, then I'll definitely, consider spending money on that series. But this particular case with J. Kristoff, and seeing how he was writing an adult book, I don't think that adult books by J. Kristoff are for me. I will definitely steer or stick with the young adult books that this author puts out, and even then it will depend The writing, I'm not sure if I particularly cared for. That's the other reason why I want to wait and check the book out from the library. Not sure if I quite agree with the writing style for me personally. So that's all of the prompts and the books that I read for the Halloween bingo that Amy from AStar Reads put out. I highly recommend checking out her channel. She does a fabulous job, and that'll be it. So let me know if you participated in this, what your favorite book that you read for the month of October was, and what you're most excited to get to between now and the end of the year. Talk to me in the comments section below, and until next time, stay true to yourself and enjoy a good book. And I'll talk to you later.